it's Alexis Hasselberger here, time management and productivity coach. Today, let's talk about someday maybes. You know, those tasks that are on your list that you're someday maybe going to do. They're things that you haven't committed to, right? There's not a time, there's not a deadline. You know, they're not even sure that you're going to do them. They're just kind of your treasure trove of great ideas, the things that you'd someday maybe like to do sometime. And these can get us into a little bit of trouble because most people tend to go one of two directions. So one direction is they're all in your task system. So there's a lot of stuff cluttering up the things you actually do have to do that you've already committed to. And you're maybe feeling bad that you're not getting to all of this stuff that is in there. But the reality is you just don't have capacity to do it all at one time, which makes sense. That's how things are for the most of us. So maybe it's feeling like, there's just so much stuff I keep pushing and pushing and pushing, I never get to. The other side of that is maybe your task list is sparse. It's got only the things on there that you actually need to do, that you've already committed to, that have deadlines. But that doesn't mean that you don't have a lot of great ideas. It just means maybe you're not writing them down, right? Maybe they're not being captured in such a way that instead they're kind of circling in your mind. They come back time after time after time. So let's talk about a couple of different methods that we can use for keeping track of all of our someday maybes, for making sure that these items, these great ideas that we have, that they don't just go to the graveyard. They don't just become nevers. Now, will we do all of them? No. Right? But we want to be really making decisions about which things that we do want to do, which things we want to bring into our active world, which things we do want to put dates around, we do actually want to commit to. Because that is going to help us to have agency around these items and make sure that, the ones that are really important, they do get done. And all the other things that maybe weren't as important, or maybe they weren't as great of an idea as we thought, that those ones can kind of remain there if we ever do decide that we want to do them. So two different methods that I have for handling this. The first one I call the next action date method. And so with this method, you're actually going to put a date on these someday maybes. So maybe the date is, you say, okay, I want to think about this in 6 months from now. So you put a date on it. Now, the kicker here is that your next action can't be to actually do that thing, right? Because you don't know if you're going to want to do it in 6 months from now. The next action needs to be decide if I want to do this thing in the next month, in the next year, etc. Now, when that thing pops up on your task list on that date that you've arbitrarily put on there, now you get to decide. Do you say, is this something that I actually want to do? I'm going to commit to doing it. I'm going to figure out what the next step is. I'm going to put it on the calendar. It's going to happen. Or do I say, still a great idea, still not ready to do it, and I'm actually just going to push that date? Maybe I'm going to push it a year. Maybe I'm going to push it another 6 months, right? So this is the next action date method. You are giving yourself a next action of deciding if you want to do something. And those things do have dates so that they pop back to you, at whatever cadence that you have chosen, so that you can decide on those things. I find that this works better if you don't have tons and tons and tons of someday maybes. Maybe you have 10, 20, something like that. This method can work really well. Now, the other method is more of a bucket method. This is where you're going to have a someday maybe list, or a someday maybe zone, or a category, or et cetera, in your task system. But none of these items are going to have dates on them, right? So it's just literally you're dumping all your great ideas in there. They don't have dates. They're not cluttering up your task list, trying to convince you that you should be doing them today. They don't have dates on them. Now, the key here is that you do want to have one dated recurring task. So maybe it recurs every 3 months, or maybe it recurs every year, or whatever makes sense for you. I like to use a quarterly planning method. And so I use every 3 months. But you're going to have this recurring task that says, go review those someday maybes and decide if you want to actually do any of them, right? And this is the method that works really well if you have tons and tons and tons of things in there that you someday maybe want to do, because you don't want those things constantly cluttering up. So this is a system for me that I use this in my business, because I think I have 400 plus items on my great ideas list of things that I want to do at some point, maybe, right? Probably not going to do the grand majority of them, but I want to keep track of them so that I don't lose them. And so in this method, every 3 months, I'm looking through that list and saying, do I want to pull anything into my active world? Do I want to put a date on anything? I'm going to get to commit to anything here. And usually I commit to a few of those items, right? A few out of the 400 or so that are there. And so this method, remember, you're going to have that recurring dated task that tells you, go check your someday maybe list. And the reason that that's important is because otherwise it can become very easy for you to just forget all about these ideas and never review them again, right? So those are the two methods I want to share with you: the next action date method and the someday maybe bucket method. Let me know in the comments if you've tried one of these before, if you're open to recommitting to one of these methods. And also remember that you can use both methods. You can have some tasks in one method, some tasks in the other method. You can use one for personal and one for work. You can switch things between methods over time. That happens to me sometimes. I'll put, decide if on something. And then once I've pushed it a number of times, I'll say, you know what, this actually just needs to go in the someday maybe bucket. And so I'll look at it every 3 months or so. So there can be a lot of fluidity. It doesn't have to be just one way, but I would love to know how you're keeping track of your someday maybes and if this helps.
Hello, it's the video editor here. Just want to quickly say drop a like and subscribe. As you can see, only 8.3% of the people that watch our videos are actually subscribed, so it would be a big help if you subscribed.